Good afternoon. May we bow our head for a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Thank you for joining us for our work session for the Board of Trustees for the Greenville-LaFleur Consolidated School District. Colleagues, I ask that if we can, if at all possible, let's move the meeting along. It's my understanding that Amanda Elsie has this coordination this evening, and I am certain that the administration would like to get out there and support our children, and maybe some of us as board members would also like to attend. Mr. Brooks. We're number 3, the policy. It's indicated on the agenda, we always review policies, and I know Ms. Lewis asked about one of our policies or activity. Attorney Palmer, are you in a position to discuss policy GAHB, if I'm not mistaken, and that's in regards to political activity on school grounds?
I am.
The floor is yours, Attorney Palmer.
Dr. Bailey, I didn't know if there was a specific question regarding this particular policy in order for me to address.
I'll let Ms. Lewis. The floor is yours, Ms. Lewis.
I just wanted to revisit that policy to make sure that everyone is on the same page in reference to that. Now, I saw one policy listed, but there's actually another one as well. You have on here, what is it? GAHB,
Yes, ma'am.
but there's also another one, KJ. And it talks about not only, in KJ, I think it talks about everybody. The first one, I believe, talks about employees.
Ms. Lewis, just for my clarification, the KJ is regarding advertising in schools, is that correct?
I think that's part of it. In speaking with MSBA today, they quoted 2 policies. So my question is, they're pretty straightforward. There are no gray lines. Everything is pretty straightforward.
Ms. Lewis, based on my review of GAHB, and there is a brief reference in the policy that you had identified as KJ, specifically under appearances, films, performances. It reads, neither the faculties, the staff, nor the children of the school shall be employed in any manner for advertising or otherwise promoting the interests of any commercial, political, or other non-school agency, individual, or organization. And it gives those 2 exceptions as itemized as item 1 and item 2. But to answer your question, I don't see a conflict between those 2 policies, and specifically in my review of GAHB, as it regards to staff members, I see that it's pretty, from my standpoint, pretty clear as what the prohibitions are.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Also, Ms. Lewis, the question about the use of the facility at Greenwood High, that may be a policy piece. Attorney Palmer, maybe you can address Mrs. Lewis's specific question regarding that, if appropriate, Ms. Lewis.
Yes, I will, are we on that now? I had specific questions about that, as to when things changed and when all the paperwork was submitted and all of that.
So in regards to use of a facility, the policy that dictates who has authority to allow use of the facility here in the district or district facilities. Mrs. Lewis has a question about when a facility was used, and the paperwork. Ms. Lewis?
Yeah, so my question would have been, would this paperwork needed to have been submitted prior to any, usage of the facilities? Would this have, should it have come before the board before it was used?
Ms. Lewis, I think I can address your question. Specifically, I know we had previously looked at EBH and EBHA. Those particular policies set forth the guidelines of rental of facilities in regards to the schools. The purpose of this particular policy or policies is to specifically outline specific instances, classifications of organizations, and under what circumstances those school facilities could be rented out to other parties or even within certain organizations affiliated with the school district. The policy in and of itself allows the superintendent discretion to follow this policy without every single instance of an individual and organization wanting to rent a school facility to come to the board for approval before the facility is rented. The only exception to that is if the board wants for some reason to change the policy, number one, and number two, if there is an accommodation that is going to be made outside of what is specifically outlined in this policy, then those particular instances will have to come before the board. For instance, if I'm a part of the Boys Club of America and I come to Mr. Brooks and the particular facility we want to rent is Greenwood High School, maybe the auditorium, as long as under the classification of my organization, I pay whatever fee it is based upon the preset schedule, I would not have to be pre-approved by the board. However, if my same organization wants to use a school facility for free and it's outlined, if it's outside of the outlined provisions in the rental schedule, etc., then that would be an accommodation would have to be approved before the board before that facility is rented.
Okay, so that's my understanding in looking at the paper, the documentation that was submitted, that, the request is to waive the fee.
That's a good matter. That's tonight.
That's what I'm talking about. Oh, they did not have come under the policies.
Right, okay, all right. So when I read your email, my misinterpretation
Okay.
is,
Okay.
I assumed that it was something that had already taken place.
Is it on here to go?
Yes.
Okay.
Would that be Greenwood Youth Sports Program, Mr. Brooks, 1455, use of the facility? Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Lewis, are you wanting us to review, the policy for a change?
Oh, no, I didn't have, no, I was just going on
My
what was
misinterpretation.
presented in the
Okay.
past.
I apologize, Mr. Brooks. Number 4, Mr. Brooks, and thank you again, Attorney Palmer. Your microphone.
Approval of the board minutes, meetings.
Attorney Palmer, you will read these minutes for us, in addition to us looking over them to confirm that they are accurate and true.
And I have read or reviewed September 5th, and I'll be waiting on September 27th.
All right, thank you. Questions, colleagues? Seeing none. Number 5, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent report.
So colleagues, you have a number of items listed under the interim superintendent's report. I'll give you a minute to look over those to see if there are any questions, or if Mr. Brooks would like for his staff to touch briefly on any of those topics.
Can you find out what standard 4.2 and standard 4.6
Mr.
are?
Brooks, the first bullet. And while we're waiting for that, I do know that Ms. Abraham did inquire about enrollment, if I'm not mistaken, student enrollment. Is that correct?
That was a transfer of student.
Or was it you, Ms. Lewis? Somebody asked about student enrollment. No? Okay, all right.
Excuse me, Dr.
Yes, ma'am.
President,
Yes,
I have to
ma'am.
go back. When we're talking about the policy about political activity, my concern is that a staff member might not even know they can't do that. They can't have any political signs or anything. That's my concern is, they can't be responsible if they don't know the policy.
And Ms. Abraham, if I just may briefly address that, you're absolutely right. What you'll find is that most of your employees, unless they've had specific staff development to address the policies of the district, they have no idea that these things even exist.
Exactly.
So again, that's a part of the staff professional development that needs to be ongoing within our district, is just to make sure that our staff is educated as to what those policies are and how those policies apply to them.
And I apologize, Ms. Abraham, that was one of Mrs. Lewis's questions. So, Dr. Coleman, or Mr. Brooks, the floor is yours in regards to the standards. You want to just read it? 4.2. So, Ms. Lewis would like you all to just speak to standard 4.2 and 4.6.
Okay, we can do that. Ms. Johnson? Oh, standard 4.6.
Yeah, 4.2 and 4.6 was part of your superintendent's report.
And you would like what now?
To know what 4.2 is and what is 4.6.
Ms. Thomas, can you speak to that?
It's pretty much what they have on the sheet where it says that it was not a zero balance. Those funds were in a deficit at the FY21 school year. And then the 4.6 has to do with the submission of the FETS file that's due October the 15th every year.
Are you reading it from somewhere in the board packet?
Let's read from the paper. just for clarification, Ms. Thomas, so our FITS file, it was submitted after that deadline?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Lewis, if you turn on the back, you can see the violations were included.
Any other questions about the, interim superintendent's report, colleagues?
Mr. President, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Abraham, on that transfer, were you talking about, a student wanted to be transferred,
Out of our system
Yeah.
because of special needs and stuff too.
yeah, that was already,
I saw that on
it
this.
was already on there.
Thank you, I didn't see it too. Thank you.
And Mrs. Lewis's point, and I guess it's something we can talk about at the work, I mean, at the board meeting, if it's okay with Ms. Lewis. In her email, that the very first bullet was in regards to what the district is doing pertaining to overage students in specific.
Okay, we got some figures for you. Okay, did you make enough copies for the board?
Did you want me to speak to it? And I-
Yeah, speak to it, and we'll get the copies for you.
Okay, in regards to our overage students, we have 6% of our total enrollment that's either 1 to 4 grade levels behind. Our largest number is actually the ones that are in year 1, just 1 year behind. That's 42% of our total 241 district-wide that's either 1 to 4 grade levels behind. And what we're doing to address that, a lot of that happened with our 3rd grade gate, the ones that repeated in 3rd grade. You all approved the policy on last summer, had to be like a year or so before, with the summer acceleration, where we allowed them to actually master standards on this summer. And if they master those standards and actually meet that approved program, they are able to at least be moved up 1 grade level. We also implemented our high instructional material system. We're using intervention. Our pyramid for us, our tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. Right now it is upside down. We're seeing growth. We're seeing growth throughout, but in order to go back and fix what it is, of course we have the Excel Academy, because a lot of them that's actually behind, they're behind in high school, so they're using the GED route. But the ones that are here, we're working relentless to actually provide the intervention and remediation to try to catch them up on grade level, and also for the ones that will qualify for our acceleration program during the summer, we are trying to burn the candle from both ends. And improving our 3rd grade instruction through our high quality instructional material that we are implementing full force this year.
Dr. Moore?
I do have a question, Superintendent Phillips. At what grade level does the summer celebration end? What is that? What are the grade level? Yeah,
Yes,
I guess
that-
that's what I'm asking.
Yes, it ranges from actually 4 through 8 is what they did this summer a lot. And of course, once they get into high school, the credit recovery and credit accrual kick in. But as far as the acceleration program, the targeted grade level is going to be primarily our 4th through 8th grade.
Mr. Brooks, I was gonna ask, what is the approximate, I know you don't know for sure, enrollment of East Elementary? Of East Elementary, just a ballpark figure, enrollment rate.
I do not. I have it in my office. I can run and get the
Well,
enrollment.
I'm sorry, my concern is the high number of upgrade students there is over double in some cases. In many
Right.
cases, I'm sorry, in many cases.
Yes, and like I said, that was it is going to be due to the 3rd grade, because East is only 3rd through 5th. So the ones that actually get there, either they failed in that K through second grade, we're working hard. We actually conduct a literacy learning walk today. We are working to strengthen the instruction in that K through second grade for us the foundational, to ensure that when they get to East, that he's not having, or that particular the students, well, the teachers in the third grade is not having to go back and try to chunk 2 or 3 years of instruction into 1 year. So,
For our third grade students.
yes, our tier process, and just to be transparent, right now, it's noted that we're having tier 1 issues. Anytime that you have more students in tier 2 and tier 3, we got to focus primarily on tier 1. Tier 1 is just high quality instruction. We're, like I said on today, we have learning walks that are taking place throughout. We still trying to bridge that achievement gap that was made due to, don't want to bring the word up because we're not using excuses, that's behind us now, but the elephant in the room is there is an achievement gap that we are closing even as we speak, and also bringing and strengthening that pre-K through second grade instruction to ensure that they can read, because if they cannot read, once they get to the standard-based instruction, if they don't have that skill foundation, then they are suffering in that area. So we're focusing on intervention. Even now, we're not waiting. One of the things, we're going to allow the intervention folders to follow the children. Because in the past, every year the teacher is working on intervention, but now we're saying when that child hits your room, you should have prior knowledge on what it is that child can do. Even upon entering, you won't lose that time. So we are working to strengthen tier 1, number 1, and also targeted instruction for tier 2 and tier 3.
My question, Ms. Johnson, is I'm looking at these 2 kids, well, I guess it's 2, I don't know, from Davis and East that's 4 years behind. And I just don't see how, if they are allowed to attend 4 weeks of summer school, how they gonna master something that they couldn't master in an entire year. It just seems like we're failing those kids.
Yes, I mean, and Ms. Lewis, just to add, they are not being moved up to their right grade, number 1. And then they took, well, I'm not going to disclose names, but those students they were not part of the summer acceleration program. For whatever reason, even though it's offered, to them to try to make up the gap for us, the overage, but all of them do not take advantage of it. What we're doing now is all that we can do, and some of them do not test into the exceptional ed program. And although they have different screening process, and even though they are that many years behind, they still may or may not qualify for the SPED services.
So if the parents of these students who are 4 years behind, if they wanted to come in and say, I want to see the interventions, my students' interventions from wherever I started to fail, would that be something that would be available?
Yes, right now we are strengthening the tier process as a whole to make sure, and to be honest, Ms. Lewis, it's such a large number that's in the tier process now. What should be our large, when I say the pyramid is upside down, typically you will have the base, most of your children will be in tier 1 receiving that high quality instruction. You'll have less children in tier 2 and tier 3. But right now, that's not the case. We are working to strengthen our tier 1 instructions and to ensure that it's less students that we have to target. Because when you mention intervention for tier 2 and tier 3 is something that they do not receive on tier 1 instruction. It's supposed to be something that's in addition to their high quality instruction in tier 1. So, and we have our computer-based program, but we know it does not take the place of the face-to-face intervention. Just at one particular school, one of the things that we have done is identifying the intervention hours. we're stressing now more than ever if they cannot do the who, what, when, where, and how the intervention is actually taking place, then it's not happening. So we have intervention blocks now built in the schedule, and that's district-wide. Ensuring that that time is carved out so that we can work towards filling these achievement gaps.
And that's not using iReady for that intervention time, is it?
No, and let me say this, glad you brought it up. iReady is a supplemental aid to what we're trying to do, but it's not an end-all be-all. iReady tools for instruction, once they're on that system and they receive an individualized instruction, the next step is to ensure that when the computer says, Johnny is stuck here, pull him out, use the tools for instruction, and to give them that face-to-face, and then allow them to start on, continue on their journey. So never will computer-based individualized instruction take the place of face-to-face intervention, no.
One more observation, Mrs. Johnson. Could maybe a couple of variables to these two students be, of course, COVID-19 and possible absences?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up. These are the variables that are not discussed all the time, but they're there. 13% of the students that in the district were transferred in, 13% of those that are actually populated on this list, and I will give you all even more of a detailed breakdown. So 13% are those that we're either waiting on cumulative files from or so forth. So we are trying, and anytime you speak of closing the achievement gap, it cannot happen overnight. We want to see growth. Our theme and what we focus on to ensure that if a child hit a class and then 180 days later they're doing better than they were when they came in. We want to grow.
All right, Ms. Abraham, are you still interested in those numbers for the school? I can give them to you now. Claudine Brown, there's 260 students. At Bankston, there's 307 students. At Davis Elementary, there are 374 students. At East Elementary, there's 225. DeFloy Elementary has 303 students. Grayville Elementary has 321 students. Amanda Elsie Junior High has 211 students. And Greenwood Middle has 276 students. LaFleur Junior High and LaFleur High School has a total of 313 students. Greenwood High has 633 students. Amanda Elsie High has 373 students. Grayville Primary has 216 students. And that's it.
Thank you. I was really interested in these because the percentage seems so skewed there of overage people.
All right,
Go ahead. Ms. Lewis, you had something else in the request, calendar correction?
Oh, yeah, I was just, looking at the calendar, one day, and I just noticed, Tuesday, December sixth is a Wednesday. So, but on the calendar I have, I don't know if it's been corrected. It's on here as Tuesday, but
Any
that,
dates on there?
December sixth is a Wednesday.
Add a date on the calendar.
This is our board meeting. Work sessions and board meetings.
Oh. What you said is now?
that's the board meeting, calendar.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you said,
For December sixth, it's listed as Tuesday, but it's Wednesday. December sixth is a Wednesday. And so I guess it would need to be corrected on that.
All right, no other questions, colleagues? Number 6, Mr. Brooks?
6 was, Greenwood Middle School had some students to be recognized, and we're doing it Wednesday.
Oh, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Gotcha. Okay, good deal.
I must have been looking at the wrong calendar.
All right, so number 7, colleagues, is the bond issue discussion. As a board, are there any discussion points that we want to discuss, or simply move on to item number 8?
I would like to know where are we in the process
Attorney Palmer.
as of today?
So as of today, to the best of my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brooks or Attorney Palmer, we're at a standstill. The architect has been working with the district administration on some renderings. During the last board meeting, what is it called, Attorney Palmer? Resolution. The resolution to be presented to a circuit clerk's office calling for election was voted down. So at this point, we're just in a holding pattern, I guess, for lack of a better term, unless the board chooses to take action.
On the committee that was formed, is my understanding is the superintendent, Ms. Rimmer, and 2 other people.
Committee
Okay.
for, the committee for,
For the bond.
I know the superintendent and Dr. Coleman, they've been working with, the architect. But Attorney Palmer, you want to add something?
There was a committee that was stated at a prior meeting.
So, Ms. Lewis, just for clarity, Mr. Brooks had assembled point people, if you will, within the district to assist with that particular effort. From my understanding, for the meetings I went to, it was Mr. Brooks, Dr. Coleman. They would meet with the architect, I think maybe once a week. And then on an as-needed basis, usually weekly, myself and Attorney Young would chime in on the legal aspects of trying to get the bond issue pushed through. As we indicated at the last board meeting, we were really under some very strict time constraints, and if the board did not pass the resolution at the last meeting, it pretty much, as far as having a bond election in December, it pretty much was dead on arrival at that point.
So do we have any next steps as of right now?
So as far as next steps, really the board would have to come to a consensus as to, one, when it would like to do an election on the bond, and even perhaps in the interim, the board would have to come to a consensus on the specific site, which seemed to be a hang-up regarding the process that we're undergoing. So again, it goes to one of those things when you're educating the public as to what the plan of action is going to be by the district. If you are unable to tell them what the project is, how much the project's going to cost, where the project's going to be located, we got some work to do on our end.
Any other discussion, colleagues? Seeing none? Number 8, Mr. Brooks. Tuesday, okay. Number 9, Mr. Brooks. So not Tuesday, but the following one. So we can X that one out. Number 9 can be removed, colleagues. Number 10, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of Mississippi Delta at-risk youth, Constable, Mr. Sean Pearson, would like to speak with us.
much, Mr. Pearson, for your presence here today. What will be your primary, what grade levels will be your primary focus?
K through 12.
Okay.
Conflict resolution and peer pressure training is going to be needed on every grade level. I just heard about our kids who are grades behind. We'll be able to help you all with that, with encouraging them and helping push those numbers forward. Like I said, we're a utility now. We're usually there on the school campus, from the cafeteria to the hallways. We're always there to have a bid. And we're just going to do more of that on a documented basis. The work we'll be doing now will be documented and evaluated so that we can keep doing this work.
So question, Mr. Pearson, like Dr. Moore said, thank you for being here, and I certainly am one who believes that we can use all the help we can get in our schools, especially with our children and the crime that is going on. Looking at your description of services and your timeline, is there any room for, and I'm gonna say potential negotiations in the sense of, instead of saying October through June, maybe we look at October through December, just so we can kind of get a feel for each other, versus me committing for extended length of time, just touchy feeling, see is it gonna work out, if it's not gonna work out, is that a potential possibility?
We didn't think that would be a problem because we've already been working with the school. We already trust, we already been employed every month. We always ask to use with our work is always good and great. We already knew the rules, we already been PEs, counties, professional development. That's basically why I want to do it with the public schools, because I got a lot of my knowledge from the public schools. I got things that I know, I learned it through experience, through trial and error. So I just put it together in a curriculum. I've always been interested in putting my programs together, medical programs, taught me how to put them together, facilitate and implement. So that's what we've been doing for the school for years, and the community for years. It's just hadn't been validated or documented. So our work is very well known about. Our lawyer here, Mr. Pump, he's participated in our engaged youth program. We've already completed a couple of contracts, a couple of years. So we was a virgin when we came before, but now we have experience and we believe in what we're going to do. We're going to actually protect the school and live up to the standards for our women's school. So that's fine with me.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mrs. Lewis.
Mr. Pearson, I see in your curriculum binder, you have goals in here, but I don't see the objectives. What are you gonna do? What exactly will you be doing? With
The
the students?
objectives are in there in the form of program. We have social media behavior, we have conflict resolution, we have peer pressure training, we have academic approaches. What we do is, I'm a former person who didn't apply themselves to school yet, turned out to start applying themselves. So I'm familiar with going from 0 to 60 and changing it around. I got it wrong so they can get it right. It's very well documented. All our objectives are
question is, who's the HR person here?
No.
She's not. Okay, I see on here, Mr. Pearson, you said that you all would assist in substituting, coaching, assistant teachers, but where do we stand? And this may be a question for administration, as far as employment laws are concerned.
Well, the reason I put that on there, these are roles, that wasn't necessarily my job title, was working for the school that we have to do. I wanted to make sure that I would be able to be of service to you all in every capacity. Things happen. I may not be able to do engage in the youth program that the teachers may be out. We may have a situation going on, I might have to get in and help somewhere else. So that's why I included a list of services that would be holistically able to document everybody for the club, so that I can be confident for the board, that we do the job.
I'm just looking at it from a liability standpoint.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a former employee. I work for them. I think I've done a good job. We haven't put the district in any kind of bind. We actually have helped the district over the years. This time we'll just be able to do it and you can actually see our progress. You can actually see what we're doing. We make an impact. It's an abstract impact. It's not a concrete impact that you can touch. It's something that you can see up the road and try to enlighten the mood on campus. Put a social environment out there that's conducive for learning versus right now the stage is set for violence. It's easy to get a fight now. It's easy to get shot now. It's easy for parents to come and literally at the school now. So we have experience with calming parents down, students down, so that we can keep liabilities off of us. Our security, actually secure campuses, not teaching our purpose.
Okay, one last question for Mr. Brooks. Looking at the amount, where do you propose this coming from? Do we still have federal funds for safe and orderly schools, or are those funds no longer available?
They are not.
So where do you propose, if in fact the board, passes this, where would the funds come from?
We just have to talk to Ms. Thomas and Ms. House and see if there are funds available.
Any other questions, colleagues? Again, Mr. Pearson, thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we're able to work something out. Number 11, Mr. Brooks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, the report, for this month, we have 2 properties that are coming up, agricultural land, that are coming up for bid, and we're just getting the board permission to go ahead and advertise. And hopefully by next month, or next month is October, November's board meeting, hopefully we'll have bids in place, once the board approves to go ahead and advertise. That was the first 2. The third one is, I spoke with the board on last board meeting about entering into a private contract. I did get one actual check, that I'm holding, for the board approval on this, personal contract, or private contract with this individual. A private contract with, yes, I'm going in. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, a private contract, with this individual. The amount of the payment was $1,800. So, yes, $1,800. And last year you got $1,500 for the same property. But it's on the board. You know, I told the board I would let them know who gave us a bid to say, well, not necessarily a bid, entering into a private or wanted to enter into a private contract based on what the board decision is. So
That's one of the other items that's on here. And then the last part is dealing with some reinstatement of some individuals at Braley Campsite. There are certain lots out there that were terminated or canceled, and those individuals had paid on the property. And because they sent a termination letter in, they, the county had put those lots into the district's name. So, but I did check to see if they had paid the taxes, and all three individuals had paid taxes on the land. And I don't know if it was in time or not, but anyway, we're trying to see if we need to reinstate those contracts with those three individuals that listed.
Thank you, Mrs. Washington. Is that it?
Yes,
Questions,
but
colleagues?
Yes, a question for clarity. You said, number 3, we issued a private contract.
we have not issued it.
Okay.
I got board approval to go into a private contract, but I told the board that I would bring back the information to you before we actually went into that contract. So it still gave you an opportunity to say yes or no to it.
Any other questions, colleagues? Seeing none? Thank you, Ms. Washington. Number 12, Mr. Brooks.
Answer project update, Mark Pippen. You speak with us, next week, Tuesday.
All right. 14.1.
Approval of volunteers at Greenwood Middle School.
Question, Attorney Palmer, in regards to the volunteers. From your, I want to say Fair Labor Act, can employees volunteer their time? Are we going to run into any issues? Because again, you know, my concern is, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything or suggesting anything, but if I'm not necessarily being paid for a job, how can I be held responsible if something comes up missing or short, per se? Technically, I shouldn't lose my job that I'm paid for because I'm volunteering for this, if that makes sense. Lewis at 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
This actually came up maybe last school term, and if I'm correct, it did not. I don't think it passed, so, and I can't remember why.
And if it's okay with you, Attorney Palmer, you can email that information to us, and let the board review. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Yes.
This may be a question for either Mr. Brooks, Dr. Coleman. Is on page 38. Is that first person still with us?
No ma'am, she left the district.
So will her name be removed, or she will still come back as a volunteer?
No, her name will be removed. Dr. Coleman said that she took a job at Mississippi Delta, and she's out on Friday, so she still would be available to work.
My question would be, is she covered under liability insurance in the event she hurts herself, or a student might hurt her, or how does that work? By her being a volunteer?
Typically, when we have volunteers come to the personnel office and complete a form, and we do a formal background check as we would all other volunteers and employees. Pending the background check, then they're allowed to volunteer. They're not allowed to be with students alone.
But that still does not answer and she gets hurt, and she falls, and she trips, and breaks her leg or something, Lord forbid, will that be covered by her being, a volunteer?
No, ma'am, we have several partners in the school district that are with us, and it's the same thing, they would have to use their private insurance.
So is it a waiver or something that they signed to cover us?
No waiver, we don't have a waiver in place.
Can we,
I don't think we have to have a waiver. If somebody gets hurt, we could be sued.
say that again?
We can put that part on that volunteer form if that's the pleasure.
Attorney Palmer?
I mean, does that do any good, Attorney Palmer? I mean, that's something to sue you if they get hurt or not.
We have Delta Health Alliance, we have PTO, PTA, we have student teachers, we have several volunteers or partners that are in the district.
But are they covered under their organization?
I know Delta Health Alliance is. With NBSU, the students, they're covered through NBSU. Who else we have? The PTO, they have formal paperwork that they do.
Attorney Palmer?
Wait, well, Ms. Abraham is correct. You know, you can't stop a lawsuit, but a waiver would be enforceable if they voluntarily sign that particular waiver as a safeguard to any activity that such a person would engage in with the district. To touch upon another point regarding the volunteer matter that's on the agenda. Now, when you say volunteer, are these school employees or are these, okay. So what I can tell you is that our policy does not contemplate a volunteer that is a school district employee. The definition of a volunteer is someone who is not affiliated with the school district, i.e. employed by the school district. So generally when you have a person that is employed with the school district and they're doing work, then generally you would pay them for whatever work that they do. If you have a volunteer, the question becomes, based upon the policy, they can volunteer, but if they do something that is illegal, of course, you can't hold them responsible from an employment standpoint, but you certainly could file charges against someone. Let's say someone steals 5 packs of Doritos and puts them in their car from the concession stand. So the volunteer only contemplates someone that is a non-employee of the district.
All right. So again, I think we need to work together, put our heads together as it pertains to this volunteer piece, as well as instituting a waiver. So administration, if you can work with Attorney Palmer on that. And again, colleagues, just be reminded that we're trying to get to, or some of us are trying to get to Amanda Ailes for their coordination. Attorney Palmer.
And Dr. Bailey, that particular policy regarding the school volunteer policy is K as in kangaroo, J as in Jack, A as in apple.
Any other questions, colleagues?
Just an observation, if we need to make a amendment to that policy, some type of change or modification, we can look into that if it doesn't speak to the term of liability or waiver to be signed.
4.2, Mr. Brooks. I'm sorry.
Ask the question on that first individual on there. Could she not be hired as a tutor using title money? No. I said say no water in there, but they should have it. I'm just trying to think of a way that would make her legal. Not saying that it's really illegal, but
Because I don't think we have any money. That's what we are attempting to do to save some money. And you hear from Ms. Thomas, you'll see where we are running short. And we can't pay people to be in these spots, so that's why we ask for volunteers.
4.2, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of school fundraisers.
Now, my only concern about the fundraisers, as I shared with Mr. Brooks, is that, I recognize that we can't interfere with lunchtime. However, if I'm a student and I know that if I just wait till 1 o'clock, I could buy me some hot Cheetos, I'm probably gonna do that versus purchasing the healthy snack that's sold during lunch. I understand the point and the purpose of it, but I think we're competing for the same dollar, and in some instances, we need to kind of rethink our fundraising strategies. Yes, ma'am.
My opinion is, I think we need to limit the number that we allow them to have. I mean, one school having 9 fundraisers, that's a lot. You know, you nickel and dime these people, it's just a lot.
Mrs. West?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not that they are trying to do all these activities. They're putting down suggestions as if they don't do one, then they have been able to do another fundraiser. But they're not trying to do each one of these fundraisers. They just put some ideas down. So if they don't have the pink sale, then they may just have the fall festival or the talent show. So they just have a list of possible fundraisers, but this is not what they're intending to do every month, all of these fundraisers.
Thank you, Ms. Wills, but I just think whenever it's submitted to the board, they need to be specific as to what it is that they're going to do, if we are going to approve it. So,
And was the funeral at Greenwood High a fundraiser? Oh, okay. 14.2, Mr. Brooks. Oh, we just did it. Three, yes, sir.
Approval to attend the Arkansas Conference of Technology.
Questions, colleagues? And this is someone within our technology staff? Yeah, okay.
can I ask a question while we, on technology? Where are we on fixed assets, since we hired a director for fixed assets, and I think we had someone assisting him also? Where are we? Do we have that all together now, or?
We're working on it.
Is it possible to get an
Need a
update?
lot of work.
Is it possible to get an update at the board meeting, if that's okay? Okay, can we get an update on fixed asset during the board meeting? Tuesday?
Yeah, as much as we can.
Any other questions, colleagues? Fourteen point four.
Approval of Tim's 2.0 subscription.
It should be page 61 in your packet, colleagues. And this is reimbursable, correct?
Yes. This is, once we pay this money, they will immediately reimburse us full amount.
Okay. Any questions, colleagues? Hearing none, 14.5, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of Greenwood Youth Sport Program.
And this is Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams, if you would like to come and address the board, you may do so at this time, or board, if you have any questions for Mr. Williams. Would you like to come and address the board?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Any questions the board may have on the National League or Greenwood, youth sports program? We
Mr. Williams.
been using this
Mr.
stadium
Williams.
for the
Grab a mic, please, sir.
You get a turn phone.
Again, good evening. Antoine Williams, Director of Greenwood Youth Sports Program.
we've
stadium for the last 15 years. It's been waived, or whatever, and I understand. We have played one game at the stadium this year that we did pay the fee and presented everything to the superintendent who were there. So today we just because of fees and travel and things of that nature, we just come before the board to see can we get the fee waived at Greenville High School.
What's the age group of students that you work with?
We have kids this year, low as 5 to 12.
5 to 12. Questions, colleagues?
Yes, Mr. Williams, so you all have paid one fee, a fee,
Yes, we played one time, we played that fee.
and that was the $300?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I think I've stated repeatedly, I have no problem with the nonprofit, our waiving the fee. I just want it to be consistent as people use the facilities and grounds.
Comments, colleagues?
I have no problem waiving the fee.
All right. No other comments? Thank you, Mr. Williams. 14.6, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of student transfer requests. Any questions about that?
Mr. Brooks, did we get a release from, okay, they're trying to leave us. Do we have information on the district they're trying to go to, being willing to accept them?
They are pending board approval. Already signed. Board has approved.
I'm talking about on the other end where they're going.
That's my right.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions, colleagues? Hearing none. 14.8, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of MOU from Mississippi Valley State University Office of Field Experience in Clinical Practices.
Questions, colleagues? Hearing none. 14.9, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of GLCSD Mass Corps to travel to the presidential inauguration and to raise funds.
Colleagues, I just will say, if you look on page 89, if I'm not mistaken, it is quite a bit money associated with this activity. But again, as we've done time and time again, we've allocated money to the band, we've allocated money to athletics. And I know Ms. Thomas is going to frown, but you know, my thing is, let's just allocate this money for these kids to have this experience. A lot of times, many of our kids aren't able to leave out of the Mississippi Delta. Many can't even go out of the state. So this is an opportunity and an experience of a lifetime. And I just think, as educators, it's one of our job duties to provide that exposure and access to those students. And noting that this isn't until 2025, maybe it could be included in the budget, Ms. Thomas. But you know, whatever funds that the students raise, you know, let it go to offset the cost. As I think Ms. Abraham and Ms. Lewis indicated, you know, we're nickeling and diming people. We're at the stoplight asking for $1. So let's come together and come to a consensus to support our children. The choir is doing phenomenal. Again, that's just my opinion.
My opinion is, it is a wonderful experience, but if Mr. Brooks just said, you don't have the money. If you look at some, I know, but you don't know what's gonna happen in 25. 25, you could have severe budget cuts. So, I would hate to enter into some type of an agreement and we not have the money to be able to do it, because if you can remember, they are still, I think, raising funds for Atlanta. And so that was quite a bit of money as well. So if Ms. Thomas can show us where we have the money, this will be something that can that we could afford, then I wouldn't have any problem with it. But now, I don't wanna run us in the ground, because the board is responsible for the finances.
And point of correction, the total is on page 91 and not 89. I apologize for that. Any other comments, colleagues?
Well,
Ms.
I
Abraham.
think it is a once in a lifetime opportunity for them. I would assume that going with this trip would be sufficient, chaperones, and also that there would be some historical tours that are already planned as a part of it. That might,
Yes, ma'am.
it would be great if we could get a corporate sponsor to do that.
Agreed. Agreed. Good idea, Ms. Abraham. Very good idea. Ms. Thomas, just put the mic up. Ms. Thomas. Turn the mic on, Ms. Thomas.
Number 8 kind of looked at
Okay.
number 8.
Mm-hmm. 89, page 89. Understood, duly noted. And also in regards to mentioning that, you know, the district cover the cost, whatever the allowable costs are. I understand we may not be able to pay for everything, but whatever the district can cover that is allowed. But, number 8, Mr. Brooks, as Mrs. Thomas pointed out, is something that we probably, that's page 89, need to avoid as a fundraiser. Fourteen point 10, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of early dismissal on October 20th, 2023.
Changing the professional development day from Wednesday to Friday.
Yes, when Greenwood died at homecoming last week, and the elders was having their homecoming this week. And for some reason, those times are usually built into the calendar, but they were not, so, and we didn't have time to get board approval. So, the floor will be the only time that presents itself for us to get board approval to change that around. And we really need that because the floor is 10 miles from here and we need time to get over there.
Questions, colleagues? Questions, 14.11, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the MOU for the Partnership for Health in Mississippi.
And this is in regards to Dr. Anderson that presented to the
Yes.
board. Any questions, colleagues? 15.1, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the 2023-24 Professional Learning Plan. Ms. Consent.
Colleagues, are there any questions about 15.1? Hearing none. 15.2, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the 2023-24 procurement plan and bid protest policy.
And that's page 155. Are there any questions? Hearing none. 15.3, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the workman comp renewal.
Questions, colleagues?
How did that workers' comp work out this year? are we talking about workers coming for the people in the district, like as opposed to overtime, they got compensation?
Yes.
Worked out pretty good?
Ms. Thomas?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about workers' compensation.
16.1, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel. Approval of homebound services teachers. There's been 3 or 4 students that has to be out of school for a while, and we want to provide services for them at home.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none. 16.2, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the 2023 personnel report.
Any questions? Sixteen point three, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the winter sport recommendations 2023-2024.
Just a point, again, as I said with all the coaches, it'll be good when we get to the day that all the coaches are paid the same salary across the board versus one school coaches making more than the coaches at the other schools.
It would be nice when we didn't have so many coaches to pay.
Questions, colleagues? Hearing none. 16.4.
Approval of IP development stipends.
Questions, colleagues? Hearing none. 16.5, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of Andrea Parker as title coordinator.
Will Ms. Parker be provided with any Title IX training?
She's held this position for 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Still, training is good. The Title IX has changed a lot, so.
I think she has a requisition for travel to a conference on my desk now.
Questions, colleagues? Hearing none. Number 17, Mr. Brooks.
Financial policy D1 DIB. DIB.
So you have your claims docket, statement of revenue, statement of expenditure, budget status, bank reconciliations, cash flow, fund balance, balance sheet, and bank reconciliations. That's correct, Ms. Thomas? Colleagues, do you have any questions about any of those documents? Is this part of your presentation, your report to the athletic piece, Ms. Thomas?
That was something that Ms. Lewis asked for in the last meeting.
Any questions, colleagues?
No.
Hearing none. Number 18, there will be a need to go in executive session on Tuesday, as Mr. Brooks and Attorney Palmer have discussed a matter that needs to come before the board's attention. Okay. There are no further business. Consider yourselves. I'm sorry.
Ms. Rimmer, if you don't mind, would you send, I'm not sure if you all would like it or not, would you send an email letting us know when agendas has been posted? Okay, thank you.
All right, colleagues, this concludes our work session. Please have a good evening, drive safe, and if you're available, please visit Amanda Elsie for their coordination.